That's my motivation music this morning. All right, so hey, I'm Thomas, and I'm your instructor for this Rev Up series, and we're on module 6. We're talking about working with buyers, how to get those offers accepted. You might think, well, that's not too hard these days. Well, there will come a day when it will be more competitive. Um, you know what? Can it get more competitive? Just when you think it can't, guess what? We always get creative. Real estate's changing, so we just have to brush up on our skills, especially when it comes to making offers. All right, so our affirmation today. So our affirmation, let me read it to you guys. It says, I know my value and only work with realistic, qualified, and motivated buyers and sellers. Now, if you'd like to screenshot, take a picture of that, I suggest you do, and learn to say this back to yourself out loud, every day if you want to grow your business, because this is exactly the mindset that you have to have. So let me read it again. I know my value and only work with realistic, qualified, and motivated buyers and sellers. So if you will unmute on 3, let's say it together. 1, 2, 3. I know my value and only work with realistic, qualified, and motivated buyers and sellers. Okay, great. Good participation. All right, so my question to you, and it's rhetorical, do you know your value? Because you should. It should at least be a work in progress. You are worth more than you think you are. So when we know our value, we don't sell ourselves short. We don't cheapen the deal. We're professionals. Our book of business, it means a lot to our bottom line. And for those of us who have families, kids to feed, again, we want to hold our value. All right, so we're going to learn a few things. We're going to talk about the steps in the buyer process. We're going to talk about buyer qualification and consultation, the art of showing homes. And I like to use that term art because it is something you acquire over time. Yes, it is a skill set. So, when you're a good buyer's agent, when you can navigate the showing process and get people to make a decision, that's where you want to be. We're going to talk about the purchase agreement. We're going to talk about buyer's market versus seller's market briefly. What it means to get your offers accepted. And let's just start with buyer attraction. So how do you think, and this is where you can unmute and respond, how do you get a buyer, let's just say off the fence? How do you get a buyer talking to you? How do you get a buyer working with you? Somebody.
Maybe kind of while you're talking to them, just figure out their motivation as to maybe why they want to buy.
Okay. Motivation. There you go. People talk a big talk a lot, right? I talk about $1 million houses, $5 million houses, but it doesn't mean I'm going to buy one, right? So, what could cause me to change my mind or become interested in a $5 million home? I think you would want to know that, right? So yeah, okay, good. What else? What do we do to attract buyers?
What about getting on a personal level with them, or just finding out what's going on in their life and talking to them a little bit about it?
Building relationships.
Yes.
Making connections. Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. So, okay, so a lot of the things that you do on a daily basis, and especially those who have kids, the things you do to raise kids are really not much different than what you do in sales. We position ourselves differently. You know, the end customer is different, but think about, how do you take care of somebody? Some of the best people in real estate came out of the restaurant industry or the hospitality industry. They've been trained how to notice people, listen to people, and take care of people. So those are some notes we should take, especially if we don't have that background. All right. So we attract buyers from multiple avenues. If you want to take a screenshot or a pic of this image, you can see we get, you know, the buyer is there in the middle. That's who we want. That buyer could come from a referral, could come from door knocking, farming. And look, these little circles, I mean, these are just the basic ones, okay? So we can add multiple layers, and there are buyers everywhere, okay? Where there's a breather, there's a buyer. Oh yeah. So what does the buyer process look like? Again, screenshot the image, and then you can enlarge it later. But if we start at the bottom, we see number 1 is buyer qualification. That's going to work us all the way up to number 14, where buyer takes possession. What do you think buyer takes possession of? What would it be referring to? All right, y'all got to wake up. The property, right? Buyer takes possession of the property. These are key words. So we'll break them down here in a minute. All right. Let's go to step, we call it 1A. This is the pre-qualification process. Who can tell me what it means to pre-qualify someone?
To get towards, it's not a pre-approval.
Right?
To try to find out what qualifications they have in order to get them pre-approved.
Yeah,
Maybe.
yep. It's so pre-qualification means we hadn't actually got the qualification, but it's the process of, I just call it information processing, data exchange, a little bit of investigation. We got to look into this buyer and see if they're able to buy a house, right? So yeah, so the pre-qualification process, it includes lots of different things, like if we start at the top on the left, the first circle, are they ready? So if you think about it, how does a person get ready to buy a house? Mentally, emotionally, financially? Yes, all of the above. Do you remember some buzzwords from real estate school when you're dealing with someone who is ready to buy a house? They name these 3 words that are here on the screen.
Ready, willing, and able.
Yes. So always keep that in the back of your mind, because all 3 have to line up together. So they might be ready, but they might not be willing or able. They might be able and willing, but if they're not ready, they're not going to do anything. And when I say buyer, that could be 1 or multiple people. Okay. How many times have you had, maybe a first-time home buyer and mom and dad is co-signing the loan? So really, you've turned 1 buyer into 4 buyers. Okay. So 4 people we got to listen to, we got to please, we got to find out their wants and needs. All right. So are they ready? How do we find out if they're ready? Well, we have to ask. We have to inquire. That means asking questions, listening closely. And the only way we're going to do this is to actually talk to people, dialogue with people, right? That's why I like to call it a consultation. A consultation goes both ways. So things to check for, things to, to know, background things are, about their children. What do they need? How many bedrooms? Do the children get a room each, or do any of the children share a room? Are they special needs? How long have they been looking for a house? So when we get to asking questions like this, you might be thinking, well, when I'm working with a buyer, I may or may not think about those questions. So how do I know? Well, guess what? I'm going to email you guys some forms, or kind of templated forms that will, if you put them in front of you when you're working with a buyer, they will prompt you to ask these different questions so you can notate the information. How about someone being able to buy? What would that mean? Do you think maybe they need funds in the bank? Do you think they may be they need to have the ability to obtain a loan or financing? Yes. So that speaks to ability. How do we know if they're able? We ask them, have they talked to a lender? If they haven't, we can refer them to a great lender, right? We have to see the pre-approval letter. Although we want to trust people, and we do, we don't take their word for granted. We need to see it on paper. It's a business, remember. So some things to check for. If they're saying they want to buy a house and they're currently renting, then one question that should pop in your head, okay, when does your lease expire? Because especially today, people that are in leases, it's a huge amount for them to buy out the lease, or they cannot get out of the lease. They have to pay it out or stay in the lease, or get, it's going to cost them. So if someone has 6 months left on their lease and they're paying $2,500 a month, if they walk out of that lease and they get hit with a judgment, do you think that's going to hurt their pre-qualification? So best case scenario is now this person can't buy now, they're buying 180 days from now. You see where I'm going with this? Does this make sense? All right, y'all got to talk back to me. I got to know if you're still behind the screen.
Man, I'm here.
All right. What about if they've sold a home recently, or what if they have a house pending sale? Don't you think that's good information to know?
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. The third part, are they willing? Now they're ready, right? They've made some decisions. They did some pre-planning. They got pre-approved by the lender. Well, they might not be willing right now. They might need 2 weeks. They might need 3 weeks. I don't know. So one of the spouse might have some second thoughts. So again, you got to ask yourself, what are the issues that are holding them up? Maybe there's a divorce pending they're not telling you about. Maybe there are some credit issues. Maybe there was an auto repossession a year ago. So you're going to have to ask questions, ask open-ended questions. Some things to check for: name changes, divorce, long-term job versus short-term, their income level. Those are just some basic high-level things. This one of the questionnaires that I'm going to send you looks like this. So it's a one-pager. I would always say print these out and put them in your folder packet. I'm hoping that when you meet with someone, when you have a a buyer consult or a listing consult, that you take one of our Realty One Group folders, they look nice, and load it with paperwork that they're going to need. You can pop one of these in it, and then while you're talking to them, you can pull it out, and this is how you can take their information down.
Okay.
Now, when somebody sees you actually writing down what they're saying, that makes you look professional. They know you're listening to what they're saying. So I think it's a plus to pull this out and use it while you're doing your consultation. Now, something I recommend, let me see, I don't think it's on the next one. Yeah. So something I recommend is, all right, we're talking about the wants and needs of what our people, our buyers, prospective buyers want. If you turn this buyer questionnaire over and make 3 columns, one is the must-have list, one is the bonus list, and one is the knockout list. Okay, so once you've attained their information, now you want to find out, all right, and you got to know how to build a search. You don't want to just put them on a search and send them everything. You want to narrow it down. So you're gonna need to find out what are the things they must have in a house. If they must have a 2-car garage, write it down. If they must have an upgraded kitchen or whatever, write it down. The second column is the bonus list. These aren't must-haves, but we would really like to have, a big backyard. We would really like to have a 4th bedroom. And then the knockout list, that's the third list. That is, if this is on or part of the property, we're not going to buy it. Or it could be if it's close to a school or retail or business, center, they don't want it. Whatever it is, it could be, some people don't want power lines running behind their house. Those are things, if you ask up front, it's going to save you a lot of time. All right, let's move on. All right, step 1B. And if somebody can remember, let me know when it's 9:50. So the lender meeting. We're going to have a lender on here in a couple of weeks, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time. But you need to know. So what I do is if somebody comes to me and they're adamant about using their lender, what I do is I do a little bit of research. Find if they're local, it's somebody I can talk to and actually go see if I need to. If it's somebody they've just pulled offline and said, oh, just this, we got this email from this lender in Nebraska. So what I tell them is I say, look, what you want is you want to work with a lender that can meet your needs and be available. Don't go under contract with someone you don't know, or maybe is in a time zone that's not going to line up with when you can speak to them. And then I tell you what, I've got 3 lenders that I highly recommend. They all have offices within driving distance. They text me after hours, and I assure you they'll give you the best rate. 9 times out of 10, buyers will go with my lender. Now, having said that, that was kind of a soapbox. Make sure, and the reason you want a good lender, okay, is because, again, some of these online entities, they will tell people they won't pre-approve them. They'll just tell them based on their conversation, oh, well, you're pre-approved for 500,000. Let's get started. When really they're only pre-approved for 350,000. Okay. So you want to make sure you know how much house they can buy. That's why they need to have the conversation with the lender first, and you need to see that pre-approval letter before you can really talk about any of this. Okay. Now, if they want to talk to them about showings and what that looks like, but tell them we can't pull the trigger until we get a pre-approval letter. And you can help them do that. You can get it same day with one of your lenders. timing, like if they're about to start a new job, do they have a letter and an intent letter, because the lender's going to need to see it. When it comes to credit issues, are they good, or do they need, are they 2 points away from qualifying for a better rate? Things like that you need to know, have a conversation with the lender. All right. So again, I'm giving you high level kind of things to think about and prepare for. So this is not a very this doesn't catch everything. Couldn't possibly do that in this training. So let's talk about step 2, the actual meeting consultation. So why should you meet in the office? Well, our offices are professional. They're geographically located. That provides you some safety and security, because it's a familiar place. And when somebody meets on your turf, you have control. When you're meeting somebody at their house, that's their turf. They have the upper hand. Now, it's okay. I meet people at their homes a lot, but you have to know how to be in control in that scenario. And sometimes people that are newer to sales don't like to assert themselves. Well, you can be assertive without being an a-hole, and you can manage leading people, even when other people think they're the ones that are leading. So that's a whole different conversation, but these are some things you need to think about. Okay. So we talked about, you verified their loan qualification. They're good. Now we're going to review their search criteria. Now this could be a very extensive conversation, but if you got it, if you use your intake form, then you're going to ask them the questions spot on. There's no guessing. There's no coming back later. Oh, forgot about this. So that's a good reason why you want to use the forms that we provide, or one that you found that you like to work with, but use something that prompts you to ask certain questions and write down certain information. So you're going to need to learn all about what type of house they want. Learn about your buyers. You're going to need to know their wants and needs, up front. You can't possibly look for the right house for them without knowing their wants and needs. And this is where a lot of agents lose clients. If you start showing houses, or you start thinking that your buyer will like the type of houses that you like, or you're going to push them to look at certain areas, you're going to lose them. They're just not going to call you back, and they're going to start looking houses with somebody else. I would highly recommend you introduce the buyer to your team. And what I mean is, okay, this is the initial consult meeting, right? Tell them that you're not a work alone agent, that you're part of a team of 70 other agents. I'm talking about, our office. So when I say team, I'm using that loosely, but we do work as a team. You've got 3 brokers in charge. You've got 4 of us on the leadership team, and then you got all the other agents. So tell them that, you work with a team, and that team is here to back them up and provide a service. Educate them about the process. Now, I'm going to email you a copy of a PDF that lists the 47 duties. Now, these are, you can find 48 if you want, but there's the 47 duties of a real estate agent when it comes to helping a buyer. I guarantee you, if you show them this, if they ever thought or thinking they can do it on their own without you, they might think twice. There is a lot to do, especially for someone who's not in real estate, who's not been educated. It's a lot for them to handle, even just buying their own property. All right. secure buyer loyalty. So what this means is during your initial conversation consult, you're going to try to tie the knot with them. Okay. You're going to say, hey, love for us to sign an agreement today so I can start working with you now. This agreement means that we're loyal to each other. So what agreement would I be talking about? What do we call it specifically?
Exclusive
Yep.
buyer, somebody.
Exclusive buyers agency agreement. So that means exclusively we're going to work with them. They're going to work with us. So they're bound to us. We're bound to them. Explain that in a nice professional way and people will understand it and they'll sign. Because what you need to hold to is until they sign that agreement, you're not going to show them any houses. You're not going to go out. You're not going to, drive the car around. You figure out how you're going to say it to them. But this is a business for you. You just don't take people out to look at properties without a pre-approval letter and signing a buyer agency. Okay. Now I have met people and I will meet people the first time at a house to meet them and show them the house. But then after that, they're going to sign a buyer agency. I'm not going to show them any more properties. All right. Then we schedule the showing appointment, right? There's a lot that goes into that. We'll talk about that more in depth here in a minute. So the pending path, I think you've seen this before. I would take a snapshot of this. We move from contract to inspections, from inspections to repairs, and then we have the lender requirements that are going to be coming in. Who can tell me what one lender requirement may be?
Lender requirement.
If you bought a house before, the lender comes back mid, transaction, says, oh, we need this or we need that. How many of you have had to get an employment verification letter? Things like that. Also, while you're in the pending path, if your buyer makes a large purchase, the lender's going to know it because they're going to run their credit again before they close. And they're going to say, oh, let's talk. And if that purchase is large enough, it could knock them out of being able to buy the house. So another conversation to have with people up front is, hey, when we go into contract, or it's starting right now, try to limit your purchases and please no large purchases until after we close on the property. And you can even have the lender to have that conversation with them. They know it very well because it knocks lenders out of business from time to time. Somebody will decide, oh, I'm gonna go buy this new car, and they go buy the car, their car payment goes up. Now they don't qualify to close on the loan. Then title issues. So the attorney will run title. And if anything comes back that shows the title is not clear, so then they've got to clear it up. A lot of times those things are handled within a few days, but there are some title issues that will not get cleared up and will keep the house from closing. So just beware. Then we have the close, which is a very emotional, or can be a very emotional day or hour. But with the right attorney, and I will say this, look, the people that we work with in the process, you need to handpick to be on your team when it comes to the inspector, even home repair person, to your attorney, to your lender. The way people talk and handle themselves makes the transaction get to close. If you have a lender who's rough with people, it's not going to go well. If you close with an attorney who's just an idiot, it's just going to be a bad ending. So use people. I like to say that we know, love, and trust, right? And some of the people that we vetted with Realty One Group, our partners, we put them through that test. And we feel like these are people that we would put in front of our own family. All right. And then you have the move in. Don't forget, drive by and say hello. I'm not helping them move. All right. Okay. The buyer consultation. Some things that you can say, some things that would be a positive to help this person move forward. I'm going to help you negotiate the best possible price and terms. Why do you think that's important?
Buyer
Because-
consultation.
Yeah.
Consultation.
People don't want to pay too much for a house, do they? I don't. I mean, people have the last 2 years, right? They paid over market, but that's what they had to do to get the property, right? And they understand that this is the way the market is. But
Probably
Yeah.
he's gonna show all these.
all right. And then number 2, I will act as your advocate. They really need to know that you're on their side. You know, why else do they need you if you're not going to be pulling for them? All right. You're going to try to get them the best possible price. You're going to navigate them through what I call the real estate jungle. And then you're going to tell them, my job is to help you get through the process and the paperwork quickly and successfully. So if you want to jot these down or screenshot, these are some good buzzwords, phrases that will make people feel good about the process. All right, representation agreement signed. All right, before we can move forward, we have to have an agreement, right? And I call it the hiring agreement. And it's okay for you to tell your clients it's a hiring agreement. We call it a exclusive representation, whatever you want to call it. People, got to be represented or need to be represented. We advocate that. So it increases your odds of getting paid for all of your efforts. What I mean is, if you don't have an exclusive buyer's agreement, you don't get paid, right? Even if you do have an exclusive buyer's agreement, people can still walk away, right? Yes, they can. But it does increase your odds of getting paid. So you need to have this documentation in your file. And again, remember, loyalty is a two-way street. And we ask that from our clients. I'm going to be loyal to you. I ask that you be loyal to me. And that's a fair conversation. All right. So a lot of times agents, they stumble and bumble over how to ask people to sign the buyer's agreement, representation agreement, whatever you want to call it. Here's something real easy if you want to screenshot this. Let's just, when it comes time for this transition, say, let's move to the paperwork that allows me to represent you. I'll give you an overview of each section. That means you're going to paraphrase it as you go through it. And it's actually pretty straightforward. If you have any questions, just let me know. And continue on to reading the agreement. If they stop you, then answer their questions. I guarantee you that if you're confident in yourself and how you handle yourself in front of them, they're not going to question anything. They're going to think, okay, this is what I need to do next, and they'll sign it. Now, if they're not ready, that means you haven't done enough homework up front, or there's some things that need to happen before, they get back to that ready, willing, and able mindset. So, but this is something that'll really help you. All right, everybody still with me? Okay.
Yes.
So-
Showing appointments. So you've made the showing appointment. You're going to meet them tomorrow at 9 a.m. at X property, right? So what you want to make sure is before showing day gets here, that you set proper expectations. You don't want to wait till you get to the showing because it's already too late. So what are some of the expectations? We're going to talk about that. but you want to make sure that you've navigated, walk them through what the showing process looks like before you ever get to it. And as far as this goes, you can't really over communicate this. It's a process. It's something they need to know. But when you're setting up the showings, you're setting up the automated, searches through Showing Time, at least here under Canopy. What I tell people, and this is setting up yourself for success. If you don't tell people, if you don't give people some boundaries, they'll show up, they'll send you 50 properties the day of show, What you have to say is, hey, we have to set up showings ahead of time because we have to get appointments set and scheduled. And I'll show you 6 homes at a time, or 6 times per showing session is what I show them. And if they question me on it, I'm like, well, my day is already scheduled. This is the time block I have for you. As realtors, we're busy professionals, but this is the time slot that I have for you. Or if it's, if you're looking at showing in the next 3 or 4 days, you're going to tell them today that, hey, I have a slot available on Thursday. I can show you up to 6 homes during that time. I'm going to send you an automated search and you pick your top 6. And then after they pick their top 6 homes and send them to you, you're going to go through them. You're going to look at each one and make sure that they're still active. Okay. You're going to make sure that they're actual properties that exist, that are not under contract or not pending, so you don't waste your time. So you got a little bit of homework there. And then what you should do is look at your database. When you find out, okay, here's a buyer, they want to see this type of home in this area, then think about your database. Do you have anybody in there who said they might sell their house if somebody, if we produce a buyer? And then you're going to tell that potential seller, hey, I have a potential buyer for your house. Do you want to talk about listing it now? Does that make sense? Are y'all still there? All right, I'm going to talk like you're still there. Okay. Post buyers' needs on social media. Okay. A lot of times you'll see agents posting, I have a buyer that's looking for XYZ. Make sure you don't post the buyer's identity for a couple of reasons. You want to maintain their privacy, but also you don't want to give out information on your client, do you? Do you want another agent Googling that, client and then calling them themselves and say, hey, I got the property that you're looking for? So think smart. Okay. Some showing techniques as far as what you should do. All right, in this market, agents don't always work on your behalf, or some agents just aren't going to, work as a team. But before you go to your showings, I used to, and I recommend you call ahead or text ahead and say, hey, we're going to be showing your property tomorrow. So usually if a property is going under contract or it has gone under contract and they haven't updated MLS, they'll text you back and say, oh, I'm sorry, it's under contract. Well, that way you can write it off the day before. When you get to the house, always knock or announce yourself when you're at the showing. Don't just walk in the house without some kind of doorbell or knock. If you stay in real estate long enough, you will get surprised somewhere along the way. Somebody's in the house that shouldn't be in there, or somebody's in the house doing something. They're not ready for the showing. Usually the tenant or the owner has already left so you can show, right? But it's not always the case. Sometimes there's another agent in there showing. So it's just a respectful thing to do. When you're doing showings, you want to lead the way. You don't want to let them be the first to walk in the door. You want to walk in, cut the lights on, and just be the one leading them. However, you want to make sure you stay out of their way. You want to encourage them to explore around, look at the house, look at different areas. And what I usually do is I'm scanning the house for any visible signs of damage or any upgrades that I see. And I just make note of them so they know that I'm, in the showing with them and I'm engaged. So just watch and listen, get feedback. What did you think? I usually do this on a scale of 1 to 5. How do you rate this house? And then I make a note of it on my data sheet. Make sure you leave a business card. It's still customary for whatever reason. I guess because not everybody uses a super box. Some things you don't want to do. You don't want to walk the buyer into every room. Stay in the doorway or stay in the hallway some. Give them a chance. Your buyer may be looking for a chance to talk to their partner when you're not earshot, okay? And it's okay. Give them that time. Don't leave them blind to walk around the house. State the obvious things, which I already said. Oh, don't state the obvious things. Oh, there's blue paint on the wall. Just be quiet. Let them look, let them ask questions. Things that might not be obvious. If they don't notice the water discoloration in the corner of the ceiling, you might want to tell them about that. Don't disagree with them. Even if you disagree, don't disagree, don't argue. Don't defend the property. It's not yours. You're showing them, let their likes and dislikes come out naturally. Don't skip a home. That means if you schedule a showing, don't skip it, cancel it. If you drive up to the property and your client looks at it and says, "Oh, we're not going in that," just say, "Okay, let me take a minute. I need to cancel this." You can go into your text, pull it up, hit the cancel button link, and keep moving on. But don't just leave it uncanceled. It's unprofessional, and you can get fined for that. Don't set up more showings until the buyer has eliminated this one from consideration. So, okay, what this means, if I'm on a set of showings, these 6 that I'm showing them, don't schedule the next day of showings until you've heard back from them about these 6 properties or 4 properties, whatever it is. You want to give them a chance to consider making an offer on the houses you've just shown. If you know for a fact, okay, those just wouldn't work, that's fine. But you want to make sure you get that feedback. All right, step 6. We really already went through this. Ask questions as you go. After each showing, you could say something like, if there weren't any more houses to see, which one would you choose, based on the ones you've already seen? But I like doing the 1 to 5 scale, and that's a lot easier for people, in my opinion. All right. Property selection, look for buying signals when they look at each other and smile or whatever. Ask trial closing questions, like, where'd your dresser fit in here? How do you think your son would like this room? Are you ready to make an offer? It's okay to ask these things. All right, when you notice they are changing their preferences, they walked into a few 2-story homes and now they decided, man, we just don't want steps. I think we need to see ranch homes. Then what you need to do is stop the showings and say, hey, all right, since we're changing the game plan here, The houses that we're going to look at are not ranches. So my suggestion is that we stop the showings and that we regroup, and then we look for properties that fit, the single story profile you're looking for. That'll save you time. Don't just continue wasting time looking at properties they don't want to see. All right, some of the areas of the offer that you want to make special note is when it comes to the loan, what type of loan is it? For example, an FHA has some things that are different from any other loan. Same with the VA. The VA loan, you've got to get a pest inspection. If the place has a well, you got to get a water test. Conventional loan, you don't really have to do any of that stuff. Each of these loans, the amount they put down is different. A VA loan, they don't have to put anything down. Conventional's 3 or 5%, FHA's 3.5%. Those are just key things you need to know. Inspections, what type of inspections do you need to schedule based on the type of property? What kind of repairs? Are they going to ask for repairs? When you're looking at the property condition disclosure, make sure you explain that to your clients. That it only means that the seller is disclosing the condition of the property at the time they filled out this form. And what do the environmental disclosures mean? This is all basic stuff. So when it comes to making an offer, okay, so this is where you guys listen up. This goes to the type of market that we're in. We're still in a seller's market, right? We have low inventory, high demand, value is up. So it's definitely a seller's market. But usually in a more balanced market, a buyer won't get price and terms. They don't get both. They'll get one or the other. Sometimes the homeowner will come down on the price, but won't give them any terms, like won't pay anything towards their closing costs, stuff like that. In this market, the seller can pretty much name price and terms, right? And get it. That's going to change. Just keep that in mind. That down the road, you'll have to start having these kind of conversations with your buyer. What's more important to you, a lower price or getting help with the financing or getting the seller to help with repairs? Okay, thanks for the heads up on the time. Okay, something that I'm gonna give you to help is a buyer cover letter. And I'm not gonna explain this. I'll just let you read it when you get an email. If you'll go ahead and put your email in the chat, just so I don't have to hunt for it later. So here you're appealing to their emotions. The statement is people decide emotionally and then justify logically. So you want to appeal to their emotions. You want to show them something that's going to get them off the fence. All right, tips for communicating with the listing agent. Make sure you know whether this listing agent prefers a call, an email, or a text. If they have an assistant that they're working with that you should go through, or a transaction coordinator, don't keep bugging the listing agent. Use the go-to person that they have specified. Sometimes it's in the listing remarks. That's all I really want to say about that. All right. When it comes to handling difficult agents, look at the big picture. Sometimes the best thing to do is suck it up, be your best version of you, and keep going on. People are going to be idiots. Even in the real estate world, we have our own idiots. So just be you and be nice, be professional. If it becomes an agent you can't handle, get your BIC involved. That's what we're here for. But if you're the person, if you're the reason why the agent on the other end is not speaking well, then maybe we'll have to have a talk. But just make sure you don't let your emotions run rampant. Wait to email or call somebody if you're upset. Don't let your ego get in the way. I remember a seasoned real estate agent when I was like second year in the business. I had a difficult transaction. The buyer kept threatening to walk away. And this agent told me, he said, "Hey, Tommy, just understand this. If you'll just hang in there, you're going to get a $6,000 commission check. But if you go and say something or mess up something now that offends your buyer and causes them to walk away, you don't get the check, your family doesn't get paid." So unless it's something that they're doing illegal or unethical, sometimes you just there's a personality conflict. Sometimes you just let it be and understand, all right, this is an agent I don't want to work with again, but get that commission check. All right. All right, we're not going to talk about this because the real estate market we're in now is a seller's market. But if you want a snapshot, this is statistically sound. If we have 6 months of inventory, we're in a balanced market. If we have 7 to 12 months or more of inventory, we're in a buyer's market. But we all know we have very, very little inventory, so we're in a super seller's market. Presenting the offer. Look, everything's electronic now. If it's an occasion where you need to deliver it in person, don't let that be the reason why you don't put an offer in. But in this day and age, everything's electronic. Just make sure I follow up with a call or an email or a text to make sure the agent received it. All right. All right, opening and closing escrow. All you need to know about this is when we have a ratified contract and we deliver that to the attorney or title company, that's when they open escrow. That starts the whole pending path. When it comes to talking about wiring instructions, the attorney is going to have that conversation, or it's either going to be in their buyer info letter. Just make sure you understand what all that means. The attorney doesn't want them to compromise themselves by giving out information over the phone or in an email. We talked about the pending path. All right, when it comes time to signing loan docs, let's see. No, the only thing you know, we talked about it before, is sometimes lenders will have last minute requirements like proof of employment, things like that. They'll run a proof of funds again, or run your credit again. All right, all I want to say about closings and escrow is, if at all possible, try to attend the closing with your client. You've walked them through the whole process. Don't leave them hanging at the end. If you have a doctor's appointment or you're out on vacation, try to get one of your colleagues, excuse me, to show up to the closing for you in your place. Give them a copy of the contract and, just let them be there pretty much for hand holding. All right, just remember that in North Carolina, closing does not happen until funds have been released by the lender and the sale has been made public record or recorded at the Register of Deeds office, courthouse, whatever. In South Carolina, we know that everything closes when funded at the closing. But in North Carolina, where there's that extra step, they're going to make sure that's done separately, that the sale has been recorded, deed's been recorded, whatever. All right, then buyer takes possession and, you know, make sure they get keys, garage door remotes. Those are two biggies. Making sure they have access to the house is still your responsibility. Okay. Don't forget to work that out with the listing agent, how to transfer keys. And then we have the end, our one habit. So I'm gonna run through this. So your one habit, just remember, I would each day find 3 new people to call about and ask about working with them so you can build your business. Add those 3 people to your database. Write 3 handwritten note cards that day and put it in the mail. It's a very professional way to gain a lot of trust. And then write 3 handwritten note cards to 3 other people in your database that you haven't seen or talked to lately. And that ends our session.